Welcome to Buddha School. Please, if you're enjoying this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. We'd really appreciate that. I'm here with Salima Parani. Hi, Salima.
Hi, Jess.
Salima, let me know if you've had any interesting experiences with your Vipassana practice recently.
I have actually. So, I mean, this is not a new experience per se, but it's something that when it happens, it always feels special, I guess. It feels like, wow, there's something's happening, something's different than usual. And it's the experience of having like an impurity, so a negative emotion that you watch and you observe and you can see coming up over and over again. And even when you're practicing regularly, this emotion will still sometimes come up in your daily life. It's not going to be gone, but the experience of having this negative emotion just disappear, having mindfulness come up by itself, and like a really big irritation come up, and to have it fall away, and then be very clear and not still, not empty. There's not like this emptiness, but there's a very much participating in life, very much interacting or talking to somebody else and being in your everyday life situation. But what comes next doesn't come from being under that impurity or under the
Under
being
the
held by that.
irritation.
Yeah. And so what came up was a solution or an answer that was very appropriate in the situation, but not something that I would have thought about in my mind. It wasn't something that I would have come up with. I would have had to think for a while to come up with that. And I probably wouldn't have done that. And it just sort of, the natural solution came up by itself automatically. I could hear my mouth saying it. It was coming out of my mouth, but it wasn't something that I had pre-planned. It felt very natural and automatic.
Right. So when feeling irritated and then the mindfulness came and the irritation went away, you felt like you were able to think clearer or just like spontaneously act in a better way that wasn't influenced by what you called an impurity, like the irritation, the irritated feeling inside.
Yeah, it was very spontaneous. It was almost as if the answer was somewhere there deeper inside, but I wouldn't have thought of it if I stopped to think of it. I probably wouldn't have thought of it
Right.
that quickly. So it just happened automatically.
Well, the negative feelings like anger and irritation and feeling annoyed and stuff, those painful kind of feelings inside, they disappear when the mindfulness that comes in is totally impartial to the feeling. So when you don't have any feeling like you don't want that feeling there, or if you have like any stress about it or any bias about it, even if it's something that you really want to keep there, any feeling you want to keep there, it won't work. But if it's just like you're interested in seeing what's there and you just see it without any sort of force, without any sort of opinion, but you just even for a moment just see it there completely impartially, then it'll disappear right then and there. And that's what I've come to realize. And there's two ways that that happens. One is a little bit intentional, like you just kind of keep your interest on it for like a whole second, sometimes 2 seconds, and then it'll disappear. And then the other way is even more powerful than that, which is automatic mindfulness. So that's when you've gotten so familiar with that feeling. So in this case, it was irritation. That means you must have been seeing irritation arise often, because when you get
Mhm.
so familiar with it and so used to seeing it that you just build the good habit and you don't even have to try to see it, but the irritation will come up and then it's seen all by itself out of the familiarity with what that feeling is. It's almost like your mind goes, ah, there it is, and then it just disappears on the spot. And that's cool that you got the experience of not just the emotion falling away, but getting to see that the action is more empowered or more helpful, more skillful, when the irritation isn't there, right? It's a good motivator for really being able to see what emotion comes up in our heart at any given time, especially if it's an uncomfortable one. Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences with some new, I wouldn't say new emotions, but some things that are a little more subtle that I didn't know were there. And sort of the more often you practice mindfulness and the more often you get to see different emotions, the more subtle ones you can start to see, right? So often we're already busy thinking about something before we realize, oh my goodness, how long has my mind wandered off, right? Sometimes our mind really wanders off what we were doing. And then it's like, oh my goodness, how long was that, right? And then sometimes now I get to see not only the mind starting to wander off, just starting to wander off and get to see that, but actually start to see the impulse, like the wanting to wander off. There's like this little bit of restlessness that happens before the mind wanders off. Like our mind actually wanders off whatever we're doing, whether it's watching TV or meditating, whatever it might be we're doing, working. It wanders off because it's kind of starting to get bored with what it's doing. So there's just this little bit of restlessness, like I don't want to do what I'm doing, and then goes to wander off from there. So sometimes I'm able to catch that restlessness that comes up before it actually hits, before it actually totally leaves. And in that case, the mind gets really, really beautiful and bright and aware when it's able to notice from that point.
Yeah, that restlessness is, I feel like it's so common we don't even realize it's happening. I sense it when I'm working for long times on the computer, and all of a sudden I have this impulse or this urge to go and like check social media or do something else or go walk over to the fridge. And chances are, if I've gotten to the fridge before I realized I was going there, there was a really important big feeling of like I need to get up out of here, and there's this restlessness that you're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good point
yeah.
because there's you touched on something where there's something really deep in there where there's like in the sense that restlessness is coming from this like distract me, please distract me. And there's a sense that I don't want to accept how I feel. I don't want to um, I don't want to be with myself, or I don't want to accept how I actually feel. I'd rather go to the fridge or or turn on the TV or flip the channel, but I just don't want to pay attention to myself.
Yeah, avoiding um, aversion. Yeah, it's a big one, and I think a lot of us, we jump between two worlds. It feels like we're either running to I see social media this way. Facebook is the place where we want to sink our teeth into like the latest headlines or what people are doing, and get, and it usually feels like a cesspool of like information and negativity. And then people want to escape also in a good way, and they want something that's going to pull them out of a lower space, and then they'll go to something like Instagram and look at beautiful pictures. you know it feels like Facebook is the land of, I don't know, it feels like aversion avoidance, but lower, wanting to go into a lower place. And then Instagram is aversion and avoidance going in the, I want to look at beautiful things and feel happier and brighter by looking at those things. So, the direction in which we go can vary. Like, going to the fridge is it's a whole thing unto itself. That sort of maybe emotional, what people call eating their emotions or emotional eating. But some people do it with, they go to the gym and they lose themselves in the gym. But it all comes from, it feels like it's all coming from some sort of a restlessness, some sort of a not comfortable with what's going on right now.
Yeah, sure. And the default state of humanity right now certainly is restlessness. Like the state of humankind right now is restlessness because especially in a Buddhist context, restlessness is just the opposite of peace, right? And so how many people are sitting there in perfect peace, right? And I can see that that's true, that opposite, because when the mind is actually peaceful, like in a deep meditation, something like that, you can really sense that restlessness happen before you start to think about something. So we can see that all of our immersion in thoughts is coming from restlessness. And all of us are pretty much lost in thought, or immersed in our thoughts or our inner monologue all the time, right? Even when we're watching TV and stuff, we're immersed in what they're saying, but also what our interpretations of it. And so really the state of humankind right now is being lost in this restlessness, or being totally immersed in this restlessness. And no wonder the world ends up being a place with so much difficulties, hostility, divisiveness, war, and so much injustice.